Meow, meow. Meow, meow. Meow, meow. 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 Meow, 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 meow. Meow. Meow, 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 meow. Meow. Meow, 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 meow. Episode 1000. What's up, everybody? What up? What are you doing? What are you doing? It's episode 1000, and today is Monday, March 22nd, 2021. And hold on, I forgot to turn on my light over here. Look at that. Episode 1000, I forgot to turn on my light. It's casting a shadow on me all weird. And it makes me look like a ghost. Hold on, I gotta fix this. There. It's a subtle difference. I had to turn the light on. It shines directly in my eyes, so I normally turn it off. Welcome to episode 1000. I forgot to turn the light on. Goes to show you, you could do all sorts of YouTube-y stuff if you wanted to. You could do it 1,000 times and you'll still make a mistake. On the reg. It's Monday. What's up, dudes? Good to see all your bright and shiny faces for our little aquarium channel live stream here. Seems like we managed to crush everybody to turn off their notifications by doing Minecraft stuff on this channel. Seems to have worked because we got 24 people here today. Seems to work. Seems to have worked out pretty well with the diamonding. We're diamonding down. We only have 9 likes. So that's what's up. Happy 1000 to all y'all out there that have been hanging around and just clinching it up and going like, what are we going to do on this YouTube channel? What is going to happen? Who knows? I'm just going to keep making YouTube stuff. But let's say what's up to Mikey Fishy, who was first to the chat, Michael Sarr, who was second, Byron Volman, Frank Dominguez, Pipex, James N., Joel G., Eric Wyrock, Erna Pickery, Steve Horton, Christian, Alyssa Bentley, Sci-Fi Swordsman, Donald's Fish Vibes, and Wesley's Fish Club. I think I got them all. That was it. That's all we have to mention today for the 1000th show. I've been on the 1000th episode. I don't think I've done 1,000 shows. I think I've done 1,000 episodes of stuff. But either way, it is March 22nd, and my question of the week actually comes from this morning. Dee was asking me on voice chat on Discord. We were talking about it, and I realized that people have those questions about lighting and their plants. And we were kind of discussing what his plants were doing, how they were growing, and what was going on there. And look, I want to talk to you guys about the easy way to correlate light versus plant growth and what is going on with them without any extraordinarily expensive pieces of measuring tools, measuring devices. Light measuring devices are pretty expensive. So, what do we already own? We own the light and we own the plant. And it's growing in our aquarium. I mean, you could do this with outside plants, but it's not going to be as relevant as underwater plants. So we always end up with an element that is restricted within our aquarium, and that is more often than not CO2. There's often not a lot of CO2 in the tank, so we already have an artificial restriction from the conditions that the plants are going to be growing in as compared to terrestrial plants growing up above ground, above the water, right? You know what I'm saying? So, if you want to kind of, air quote, measure the efficacy of your light, is the growing conditions of the plant. And oftentimes what you'll see from an overlit plant, and not necessarily overly lit, but in a, air quote, highlight situation, is that plants have a tendency to grow down, sideways, and laterally, right? So they have a tendency to carpet, spread out, stay low, because they can propagate in that manner. Now, we have to remember that almost everything on our planet is motivated by potential propagation, right? Whether it be animals, whether it be plants, any of that kind of stuff on our planet, bacteria, all the way down to the bacteria, protozoa, all that stuff, they're all trying to just propagate, pass on their genes, and continue to basically expand the colony and the space that they're living in. Plants are the exact same way. They're trying to propagate, spread, create more of the same plant, And one of the mechanisms that plants will do underwater when grown under intense light is instead of growing straight up, they grow flat out so that they can propagate in that manner, because they'll send out a bunch of buds of starts for new plants to go shooting up and propagate in that manner. Just the more opportunity that it can propagate, that's what it's trying to do. And that's what our planet basically does. So I know that might be kind of confusing. Is like, huh? But if you look at it this way, low light, the plant wants to reach towards the light so that it can photosynthesize and continue to grow and propagate eventually for the future. If you have high light, it's like, ooh, let me scrunch down a little bit and stay out of the light. So as you can see, that's how we tie in the beginning of the show to the content of the show. The fact that I forgot to leave the light on, or I forgot to turn the light on to the show. So I had to stand up and turn the light on and grow up. If the light was already on, I could have just laid on the ground and done the show that way if I were a plant, which I am not. I'm glad you guys aren't a plant either. Colin's Critter Cave is lurking at work. Donald's Fish Vibe, plant growth versus light versus algae. Ooh, that's quite a bit. But basically very simple. I just explained the plant growth light combination. Algae is almost always going to be coming from overly lit and fertilizer deficient situation, which normally relies on the CO2 content of your aquarium. So the first piece of advice I normally give people is to get your CO2 up so your plants can uptake if you have a lot of light on your tank. If you have a little tiny desk lamp that's just sending in a little bit of light into the aquarium, I wouldn't worry so much about CO2. Then I would start considering your water changes and fertilizing and following like a pretty strict regimen to make sure that you're falling in line for the light restriction and CO2 restriction. You have to remember that our plants are much more complicated of a being as compared to algae. So algae can grow in an area that just has very minimal resources, right? A lot of algae generally are only using, 1 bit of fertilization compound, or fertilization component is probably the better word to use. So if you have an algae that is very lacking in complex cell structure, it really only needs like one thing in order to grow, then replicate. Then once it's replicated, now there are more of them, and it's going to continue going through the doubling process until it runs through that full source that it is consuming, right? So you might have an algae that runs off of a lot of, let's say, phosphate, and you have a complex plant in there that doesn't have a lot of light, it doesn't have a lot of CO2, it's underwater, and maybe one of the components of the fertilization of it are missing, and it can't create more of itself as a plant compared to what an algae can with a very simple replication, right? Biologically speaking, we have a bunch of cells within our body that do the same thing, where it's very easy to kind of like replicate these small cells in order to do processes within our bodies. Well, it's even easier for plants to do that. But the plant is a complex structure. It's a complex organism that needs a whole bunch of components to go into it doing well. Algae only needs like one component, and it does fine within that restricted environment. And will continue to replicate and grow, and then we visibly have to deal with it, right? So we have to visibly deal with the algae. It's more aesthetic than anything else. It's not causing harm to our aquarium. It will likely cause harm over time to the plants, essentially starving out plants and out-competing plants in the marketplace of, for instance, taking up all of the silicates, right? But eventually the silicates they lose their food source, and that may rebalance your aquarium, and then your plants will start growing again. And you'll be like, oh, maybe I figured it out. But then 3 months down the road, or 2 months down the road, or a month down the road, you end up getting that same algae bloom again. This is where note-taking comes in extraordinarily handy. When you're writing these things down and you realize that, like, March of last year, looks like I was doing the same water changing schedule. I was doing it in the same method, and I got this exact same algae bloom. Like, can start to super sleuth and figure out that, like, generally in March, an availability comes from your water source that probably causes this certain algae bloom to happen, and you might want to take that into consideration and possibly put a pre-filter on. Or you go, over the last 12 months, every single month I keep having this algae bloom. What is going on here? And it turns out that it might be just a cyclical factor of losing a certain fertilization or gaining a certain fertilization, or an algae getting the upper hand over a complex structure like your plants, and then putting and then ending up with this aesthetic problem that will likely balance itself out, and then your plants grow again. So I don't think, in my personal experience, I don't think that algae is a negative per se. And one of the big reasons behind that is that you're generally going to get a lot of information from algae growing. Like, is it growing rapidly? Have you not cleaned the glass in 6 months and it looks just a little hazy and that's all you've gotten over that time period? Most likely just going to have to clean the glass kind of situation. And the algae comes in helpful to remind you to do that. So I don't think it's necessarily a negative of algae. I think it is a component that goes into maintaining a healthy aquarium that's an actual environment. So I don't normally freak out about algae all that much personally, unless there's some slight changes I need to make. So I think maybe that's kind of my rant from this morning. I've been doing a ton of outdoor pondy, watery, planty, aquaponic-y type stuff. I like that because today is the first day of spring. We've started our seed starts, so we're getting ready for the spring. It's a coming, and it's more than welcome at this point. I do realistically want to do some outdoorsy stuff. I'm hoping I'll be able to get vaccinated by the end of the month. I'll tell you that much, dudes. I hope that's going to happen. D is back. I was all answering D's question from earlier. Hey, everyone. I know that experienced fish keepers don't like stocking questions, but I'm interested to know what would stock in a new tank. 120 to 25 centimeters. So far, I have 6 cardinals. As far as stocking goes, see, I like to build my environment and then put the fish in it because I want to build the environment first. So I generally think about the aesthetic that I'm going for. Let's say I've picked a certain rock, which is going to kind of create a certain water quality. I'm going to add some driftwood, or maybe I'm not going to add any driftwood. I put my soil in there, and then I've got this light, that light, got my CO2, yeah. And then I'm going to start getting the plants in there. I'm going to get that all set up, and then the plants normally set the real tone as far as like what fish I'm going to get. And then the reality would be, so if I had any extreme water condition, I would generally go to a fish list and find out what fish I have availability wise to get what fish that would go exactly in the environment that I've built, because I want the plants and I want everything to be in there ahead of time, and then that be healthy, have a lot of good bacteria growing in there and doing all the things that I want it to do, and then go from there moving forward to adding the fish. So then I would generally go through the list and then think, what's gonna work best in this tank, and I'll go that route. That's generally how I would do it. 120 centimeters. How much is 120 centimeters? 120 centimeters to inches. Yeah. Okay. I just had to double check. So that's kind of a smaller, longer-ish tank, right? Because you got the 25. This 10-inch by 10-inch. Oh, that's like that 33-gallon. I think that's that 33-gallon. So if you had that little, I think that's that little 33-gallon long. That's what it sounds like. I might be right. I might be wrong. So what I would do is something that's that kind of long, skinny tank that you got there. And you have the Cardinals. I think, honestly, I probably would go with Cardinals in that. And I probably wouldn't even put shrimp in it because you probably don't have an opportunity for a top, would be my guess. Joel G says 33. Yep. I think it's that 33-gallon. So I don't think you realistically have option for a top of any kind. So I really wouldn't put shrimp or any kind of jumpers in there or anything. But Cardinal Tetras probably would just be fine, I think, realistically. Oh, that coffee is insanely hot. Ooh. Unexpected, really hot coffee. A $20 super chat from Big D Smoke says, congrats on 1,000 episodes. Thanks, man. I 100% appreciate it. I think you've been here for all of them, so does that make you smarter or dumber? I'm not sure. I'm not 100%. I'm not going to make a real statement on that or not. BCFR Aquatics says, Corvus hair algae overtaking some moss, reduced light, and the moss is starting to grow out the algae, or to outgrow the algae. Now what? I still have a mass algae moss ball in the middle. So maybe you have an algae-covered moss ball? Those moss balls are kind of irritating in the fact that they do grow a lot of algae on them and whatnot. You do need to provide a good amount of water flow to them and help keep them kind of tumbling around and keep them happy. Yeah, that's what I would do. Mr. Manifesto says a 55-gallon top will fit a 33. I'm not sure if that's true, but if it is, then maybe you will have a lid and you could get a jumping fish. But yeah, as far as like the hair algae goes, like manual removal, do your water changes, double check your fertilization dosing to make sure that you're falling in line. And that's probably going to be the best bet. And you already lowered your lights, and it sounds like the moss is starting to overtake. It's starting to overtake the algae itself. So, yeah. All right. All right. Okay. Well, I talked about the lighting situation. Let's talk about the Amazon situation. If you guys are wondering about things that you want to buy, if you don't want to buy, go ahead and swing over to our store and check out our store on Amazon. I post stuff like this air tank over there. You know, things that I have used. This is a CO2 bottle. Yeah. And so you can always check out that stuff. You can spin over to our Patreon. I'm pretty active on Discord and whatnot. So if you become a patron over there, you will get access to the Discord and the Minecraft server and numerous other things. You can post questions for the show, pictures, comments, whatever you want. Feel free to bust those over there. Or you could join up on YouTube and hit our community page to join up on the Discord and whatnot. And yeah, that's our ad for the day. That was our ad read for today. Alrighty, let's see. We just got an email from YouTube that says we're live on the channel. Very helpful. All right. I'm going to just sit here and chew some gum. All right. Don't know what I've done 1,000 times. Have you smoked or cheeseburgers eaten? Yeah, I don't know. I personally don't know. How many cheeseburgers have you eaten? Because we really only need to know one of those numbers. Big D Smokes is cool. I got an Amazon order today. Alrighty. Looks like that's our engagement for the day. All right. Seems like our engagement for today. Cool. I don't know what to tell you. There's not really a whole much more to talk about. Oh, Groveside Aquariums. Here we go. I had a major brown algae situation, and now there's green hair algae on the glasses. Maybe getting better or not. Major brown algae. Brown algae is always like a really weird one that shows up more often than not. It's pretty weird. That's a pretty strong deficiency to get going on. It seems like you don't normally have an abundance of anything. It just seems like you probably generally leaned out the water so far that that you end up with brown algae. So I would take that into consideration. Think about getting a decent liquid fertilizer or something like that. Possibly changing your water change schedule with your fertilization and whatnot. It sounds like you've got green hair algae going, which means that you most likely probably fertilized and things are going to slowly head back in the same direction. I would stick on a standard. I would up my water change game at that point. I would probably do a water change every 4th day instead of every 2 weeks to 3 weeks like I do now, and kind of try to get the balance in, get the rhythm of adding fertilizer back in, and see what you come up with after a good period of time. Telescope Aquatics says, "What's up?" Well, what is up? I'm not sure. We've reached the end of today's content, I guess. We don't have any more comments or questions or complaints or anything like that. We got 1 billion likes, which is good. We won't hit 1,000 likes. We'll probably hit 500 views and, I don't know, 30 likes or something like that. Because it's 2021. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll be live on Discord and stuff like that, so guess I'll talk at you all later, I think, or something like that. Who knows?